is how you would like program your child to take a break. It's okay to teach your child to recreate, to enjoy, to take a victory lap, to be proud of what they've done. But if what they do always results in what they could be doing next, I don't know that that's correct balance. Now, if you want to train your kid to be the next Tiger Woods, this is how you do it. And if that's your only goal, that's fine. But a lot of these people will still tell you they're unhappy. And I think that's something we got to take into account as well.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
Good question.
Yeah, thanks for writing in, Kelly. Follow up with us. Let us know. I'm really interested, like what types of therapy your therapist is using and what you're currently working on.
Yeah.
What kind of homework assignments he or she gives you. That'd be interesting to kind of hear.
Awesome question. Thanks for writing in.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we discuss losing your identity when losing weight. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
This week's TheraProducer sponsor is David Datascoop Violon. So David wrote in on Twitter a while ago asking for a book on boundaries. And I gave him a recommendation, and it turns out that it was a very religious book, and I didn't know it was. And so he wrote to me saying, hey, it's really good, except for the part where I drew a pentagram, put it in the middle, and set it on fire.
I saw that this morning, because then he tagged me in it, and he was like,
hey, Nick, can I get a second opinion?
Can you jump in? And it's funny because that is like the number one book.
It is the number
most
one
common book, but unfortunately,
it's super religious.
So
don't worry, I've sent David several other recommendations that are of a more secular variety. But David, we are so grateful for your support of the show, and thank you so much for continuing to be an advocate for mental health and also putting up with my religious nonsense. If you'd like to help make the show possible, you can go to www.patreon.com/therapy and sign up. Again, that's www.patreon.com/therapy. We're back. You're listening to Pod Therapy, and our next question is about weight loss identity. This one's a really good one. Hey there, Nick and Jim. I've been on a weight loss journey for the past 3 to 4 years. I'm finding that as my weight drops, my brain is slipping back into an old way of thinking that I wasn't aware of until I was very overweight. When I was at my most fit in high school, I weighed 130 pounds. I felt and saw myself as the size of a house. It didn't matter that I was active or played sports. My brain didn't match reality. I felt gigantic. I had no confidence and did not feel attractive at all. My weight crept up in college to 160 pounds and continued to creep up until I got married and was 180 pounds, until I weighed my heaviest 5 years ago at 255 pounds. At that weight, I knew I was unhealthy, but I felt cute and sexy and confident. Looking at pictures of me at that weight, I don't recognize the person wearing my clothes. They don't look the way my brain saw them. Then Penn Jillette lost a bunch of weight, and hearing him talk, but more so hearing Matt Donnelly share his stories about weight on Ice Cream Social, inspired me to get on board. Yesterday, I weighed 200 pounds. This is the lightest I've been in probably 10 years. It's crazy to think in a day I'll be in the 100s, a huge feat. I've worked out a system that works for me: calorie counting, tracking movement, step counting, daily tracking of weight, and food and emotional journaling that's posted daily in a support group for eating and weight loss run by the Scoops called the Fatty Rabbit Club. I feel better. I'm eating better. I've stopped most of my emotional eating by becoming aware of triggers and allowing myself to be uncomfortable and sit with emotions. But now, I'm noticing my brain is starting to play tricks on me again. I know I look better now than I did. But when I look at my body in the mirror, my brain sees someone much heavier than I am. I'm beginning to be uncomfortable in my skin again, and I don't know if this is part of the weight loss process. I'm getting lumpy and squishy as I lose weight and things shift around, or if this is something I need to address, or both. I feel like because I'm now aware of the opposite body image I had when I was thin, that I'm allowing myself to fall back into the same mindset. I don't want to see myself as the person I didn't recognize in my fat pictures. I know being aware will help, but what else can I do to prevent my brain from flipping my self-image again? I have about 60 pounds left to lose. I'm going to look and feel great when I get there. I just want my brain to match what everybody else sees. Salt pork, Heather.
Salt pork.
Salt pork.
This is a really good one.
God, that's such a great question because she did it. She did everything that we advise. The emotional journal, the food journal, support group, tracking calories. I mean, all of that was such a practical way to do it, and it got results. But Nick, what's powerful about that is when she was at her younger and healthier weight, at that time she had body image issues.
Right, but then when she was at 255, then
She
that's
had-
when she said, I felt cute, sexy, and confident.
Right. And now she's switching gears. And so how do you go back? So I think that this sounds a lot like dysphoria, body image dysphoria.
And that's kind of what I was thinking, too.
Yeah. At least when she was younger. But it kind of is that again. And that's
But
what's
it's
fascinating
weird,
about
though,
it.
that at her heaviest, it wasn't there.
That doesn't shock me very much.
Really?
Yeah, it kind of doesn't. Because you're so aware of your weight that you kind of have to do this mental switch where if you hate yourself all the time, it'd be dangerous, right? So, like, at some point, your brain sort of adapts and accepts that this is who you are. You become, and also, it's not surprising because that was her weight as an adult. And so, whenever you come into your adult ego, your adult id, your adult mind, and that's your weight, you kind of do develop your personality around that weight. And then, whenever you start losing that weight, you do feel different than your old
Right.
self. And so, that can be an out of body experience, literally, in that sense.
Wow. So that's interesting. And thank you for mentioning the Fatty Rabbit Club.
Yeah.
Somebody else mentioned that to me too. I want to
Yeah.
actually. It's on Facebook. I want to
Yeah.
get on there. And
But
actually join that.
another podcast who is not us, but who we're friends with and in their studio right now is Matt Mattingly's Ice Cream Social. And they have a really cool chat room thing that they use called Discord. And there's different support groups in there, and there's one for weight loss. So everything that she did was correct. So Heather, I want to give you some feedback on this because actually, if you're playing Jim's Neurotic Bingo at home, this is yet another one that you can ping for
we
me.
need to get those cards actually made. because
Somebody's gonna do it. I'm waiting for one of our listeners. Their pod is gonna create this and send it around and play bingo at home. So I did this. At my heaviest, I was 250, and then I went through a crisis in my life, and I dropped down to 190, I think, and it happened really, really fast. And I remember at the time, people were complimenting me. And my wife and her family and other people were saying, wow, Jim, you look really good. Did you lose weight? Did you lose weight? And I didn't mentally look like I couldn't understand that I had.
Right.
I would look at the numbers on the scale, but I didn't mentally see the difference. And I would look in the mirror, and I didn't mentally see it. I would have to remind myself that it had happened. And I could only tell because clothes were falling off of me, and I was buying new things, but it didn't feel real. And what's interesting is I remember this. I had finally gotten down to a weight that's now my target weight, right?
Yeah.
But I remember, and I swear this happened, what she's talking about, I remember this feeling. I remember looking in the mirror and saying, God, I look like a child. I feel like a child again.
After you've lost all the weight?
Yeah, even though my wife and other people are going, Jim, you look great, you look great, you look great. I looked in the mirror and thought, God, I feel like a child. When I was at a heavier weight, that was me as an adult. And returning to a weight I hadn't been in since high school
Oh, right.
put me into a body that reminded me of being young. And it didn't feel flattering. I looked in the mirror and I felt weak. Even though my arms had not lost any muscle, I
Sure.
had lost fat.
Sure.
But that bulkness as a man had especially affected me where I felt very scrawny now and didn't like that feeling. And I remember that. I remember
That's
noticing that.
interesting.
Yeah.
So when you're trying to lose weight,
Yeah.
what do you identify? I mean, what is kind of the goal? Do you go by strictly what is on the scale? Because for me,
You're thinking about health.
my mindset is overall health.
Right.
And the big difference I notice when I'm doing really well, it's not that I weigh more or less. It's not that I feel like I look different. For me, it has to do with my energy level.
Right.
When I'm going to the gym on a regular basis and I'm eating healthy,
Yeah.
I feel good and I feel like I have energy. And that's the thing that keeps me motivated, and that's what I define as healthy.
Right.
So I have a scale. I've got a really nice scale.
Right.
I haven't used it in probably 4 months
Sure.
because I was losing weight but gaining muscle.
Here's
So
the
it was-
difference, though, and this is something I think you can't identify with Heather and I on. For you, that scale and that number is data. It's
Right.
just data.
Yes.
It's data like my calorie count. It's data like my blood pressure. To us, as long as I have known you, you have never been a different frame. I've seen you bulk up, and
Yeah.
your arms are bigger, but your size has not changed. You're
Right.
pretty much the same guy I've met. In Heather, in my case, we have ballooned and gotten down again, and multiple sizes of change and an identity shift as I'm the jolly guy who's kind of big and enjoying myself versus I look like, another guy. And so like that shift is an identity one. It's
Yeah.
very different. And so like for me that number has meaning. Like I went from like 230 to 220, and that's just numbers, right? Just data. It's a shift of personality too, because I start to see myself as a different man, a different version of me.
But don't you assign the value to that number?
Yes. Oh no, it's entirely subjective.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. Like, do you feel like that is an effective way to do it, or do you feel like it would be more effective if you looked at that number as being something different, as
Yes.
you change the value of that number?
No, I think you're right. And that I think is ultimately the advice that we'll give to Heather, which is this is a belief system, okay? And so for you to feel like a fish out of water, for you to feel like an out-of-body experience, for you to look at yourself and not recognize yourself is, I think, innately psychologically true. And so I identify it. But the underlying problem, Heather, that I want you to appreciate, and this might be something you want to take a good look at, is it called body dysmorphic disorder, Nick? BDD. So BDD, body dysmorphic disorder, is or dysphoric disorder, is whenever you look in the mirror and you experience what we call dysphoria, right? So euphoria is to feel really good about something and to feel very pleasured about something. Dysphoria is, of course, the exact opposite. So when a person has body dysmorphic, a dysphoric disorder, I think it's dysphoric.